If you survive this haunted house, you get $20,000, but no one has ever made it to the end. McCamey Manor is not a quick buck. This is actually the most extreme, scariest haunted house in the world. You have to sign a 40-page waiver that says they can literally do anything to you except intentionally kill you. But they will torture you to the brink of death and you are consenting. And this place is technically a charity, and that's what makes it all legal. They'll pull your teeth out, pull your fingernails out, bury you alive, shave your head, and force you to eat your own hair. Use CIA-level torture methods on you. This is a series. I'll give you all those details in the playlist below, don't worry. This is Russ McCamey, the fine Christian man that runs this show. He was originally doing it in California, but then they kind of kicked him out, and so now it's in Tennessee. I can't show you pictures of the bad stuff, but just Google McCamey Manor. Some literally crazy things pop up. There's also a YouTube channel. Petitions were made to shut the manor down, but as of right now, it is still a thing, with a 10-year waiting list of over 25,000 people.
There was a girl who couldn't leave her room every October 10th of the year.
Why October 10th?
This is why. So the mom, whenever the date came, she would mark it on the calendar. She would circle it. She would highlight it. Make sure that her kid was in her room with no windows and stuff.
Yeah.
She never told her kid why, right? And whenever she had school on that day, or if she had to do something else that day, she's like, nope, you're not allowed to leave the house. So every year, both of them would, on October 10th, they would lock themselves in a room with no windows, right? And every year, fam, you would hear someone ring the doorbell on the house.
Yeah.
Right? But the mom obviously is with the child. So she's like, no, we're staying in this room. We're staying in this room. And as soon as midnight hits and October 11th comes,
Yeah.
the knocking, the ringing of the doorbell disappears.
But why that day? Like what?
Exactly. Trust me, it's building up. It's building up. So one day,
this is why you have to be careful who you let into your Halloween parties. So this is a photo of who police believed was a guest at a Halloween party in Rochester, New York in the 1940s. The party was being thrown by Jack and Amelia Layton, and they actually noticed that this guest was outside of the party watching the guests through a window. The report claims that Amelia believed the guest was her friend Jan, who tended to go above and beyond for Halloween, creating very scary costumes. So she let this person in believing it was her friend Jan. But then 20 minutes later, Jan shows up, and that guest could not be found anywhere. So Amelia starts running around the party asking everyone if they knew who that guest was, and no one had recognized that person. So she goes into her daughter's room, who was playing while the party was happening. And the police report states that the only thing there left of Amelia's daughter was a bloody shoe. 4 other reports of this guest being at parties that night were called into police, and all of them resulted in missing children's cases. The identity of this person has never been found, and none of the kids have been found either.
2-Sentence Horror Stories Part 6. The pictures I take of others tell 1,000 words, and every one of them is help. This is me anytime I try to take a good picture. I'm not scared that I've been seeing missing posters for myself. Well, why the fuck not? It's the fact that the news is now saying that my body has been found. Is this person a ghost? Are they in purgatory? Or did they find the wrong body? I'm tucking my son into bed when he tells me, "Daddy, check for monsters under my bed." I look underneath for his amusement and I see him, another him, under the bed staring back at me, quivering and whispering, "Daddy, there's somebody on my bed." Throw both the kids away. You don't know who to trust. I recently taught myself Morse code, but I wish I hadn't. Now the birds peck at my window, warning me that it's coming, okay? Ask them, what is it? Let's start a dialogue.
This is maybe the scariest urban legend I've ever heard, and it ended up being true. Back in the 1970s, there was this terrifying fun house in Long Beach, California called The Laugh in the Dark. And there was always this urban legend that all the mannequins inside were fake, except for one. Also, mind you, this is what this week's episode is about, so if you don't want spoilers, just listen to the episode. This urban legend came to be because there was one mannequin inside that just looked wrong. All of the other ones looked fake, but this one in particular looked way too human. And a bunch of the kids also said the area that the mannequin was in just smelled really, really bad. So a few years go by, and one day a film crew comes in and is using Laugh in the Dark for a film set. The director's lining up a shot, and he just doesn't like the way this one mannequin looks in frame. So he goes over to a crew member and he's like, "Hey, can you just move this out of the shot?" So the crew member goes over and starts moving the mannequin when its arm pops off. And inside of the mannequin's arm is human bone. The kids had been totally right. The mannequin was a mummified body. There's so much more to this story, like who the person was and how they got there, and I talk about the whole thing this week on the episode.
My mom always yells at us about checking if the front door is locked every single night, and after reading this story, I know why she does that. So one of my followers named Aaron and Henry DM me this story on Instagram, and honestly, it's the kind of thing that sounds like a nightmare until you realize it could happen to anyone. So Aaron told me they had just moved into a small house in North Carolina, tucked away in a very quiet neighborhood. She told me it wasn't fancy, but it was theirs, a starter home. And she told me they had only been there for about 3 months when this happened. So she told me it was a normal Friday night. They ordered pizza, they watched a movie, and went to bed around midnight. She told me Henry swore he locked the doors before coming upstairs. Aaron even asked him, "Did you double check the back doors?" She told me he nodded and said, "Yeah, I got it," and they fell asleep fast. But at around 3 o'clock-ish, Aaron told me she woke up. She said she didn't know why. There was no noise, no light, just that uneasy feeling that something was off. She told me she rolled over and noticed Henry was asleep, breathing steady. But then she told me she heard something. The faint sound of floorboards creaking downstairs. Not the kind that happens when the house settles at night, but this was more slow creaks, like someone was tiptoeing, like you knew there was something or someone down there. She told me at this point she nudged Harry awake, whispering, "Did you hear that?" Which he then mumbled, it was probably the cat. Except they did not have a cat. That's when Aaron told me that she knew Henry was dreaming and he was a lost cause. Aaron told me the sound came again, one slow creak, then another, then silence. Aaron told me her intuition was on fire. She got out of bed, tiptoed to the hallway, and peeked over the stair railing. She told me everything was dark except for the faint glow from the kitchen's nightlight. And that's when she told me she saw it. The outline of their front door, it was wide open. She told me she froze out of shock and then rushed back to the bedroom. She shook Henry up, telling him that the door was open. So Aaron told me at this point, Henry got up, he grabbed the baseball bat, and told her to call 911 while he checked it out. But before she could even reach for the phone, they both heard it. Footsteps running down the hallway. Not from upstairs where they were, but from the kitchen. Aaron told me Henry stepped into the hallway. His heart was pounding and he flicked on the light just in time to see a figure dart down the stairs and right out the front door. She told me Henry ran after him, but by the time he reached the porch, whatever it was had already vanished into the darkness. At this point, Aaron told me she was shaking, still clutching her phone, when Henry then came back inside, slammed the door shut and locked it, and that's when Aaron told me that they both noticed something horrifying. The deadbolt wasn't turned because it was never locked. When the police arrived 20 minutes later, they searched the area but told Aaron and Henry that they found nothing. No fingerprints, no signs of forced entry, nothing except for one thing. A set of muddy footprints near the kitchen doorway. They led from the back door straight to the stairs. Aaron told me that's when it hit her. Whoever was in their house had probably been standing at the bottom of the stairs, listening to them sleep. And if she had not woken up when she did, they might have not even realized it until it was too late. So Aaron told me the police told them that it could have been a break-in attempt, maybe someone testing houses to see which one was unlocked. But Aaron told me that Henry said something that still didn't make sense. The pizza box from earlier, it was gone. Whoever was in the house hadn't stolen money, they didn't steal jewelry, they didn't steal furniture, they didn't steal clothes, they didn't steal shoes. They just ate and left. Now Aaron and Henry have cameras all around their home. Every night before bed, they walk through the house together, checking every single door and window. And this is why Aaron told me that you all need to check your doors if they're locked before bed.
If you're watching this while babysitting late at night and you're scared of clowns, I suggest you keep scrolling. This is the story about the clown statue. One night, a couple wanted to go out on a dinner date, so they hired a babysitter to take care of their 2 kids. But before they left, they told the babysitter she could make herself at home after she put the kids in bed, and if she could please watch some TV in their bedroom since the kids had been having nightmares lately. And if they wake up screaming, she could just easily run in there real quick and calm them down. The babysitter agreed and did just that. She put the kids to bed and walked into their room and sat down. That's when she saw a creepy clown statue standing in the corner of the room. She tried to ignore it and continue to watch TV, but she was just so disturbed by its presence that it sent chills down her spine. It was almost like she could feel its eyes on her, and this freaked her out so much that finally she decided to go downstairs and call the parents. The dad answers and she tells him, "Hey, everything's fine, but is it okay if I watch TV downstairs instead?" The dad is like, "Sure, but why?" She was like, "I know this sounds stupid, but the clown statue is really creeping me out." And the dad was like, what clown statue? And the girl says, the clown statue in your bedroom. There was silence for a second, followed by the dad saying, listen to me carefully, take the kids and get out of the house. We will call the police. The girl asks, what's wrong? And the dad replies with, we don't have a clown statue. She runs upstairs, grabs the kids, and goes outside to wait for the police. When she looked up, she saw the clown peeking through the blinds. When the police arrived, they entered the home and found a man dressed in a clown costume with a knife in his pocket. It turned out he was an escaped maniac convicted of murder. He had been stalking this family for months, hiding in their attic during the day and would only come out in the nighttime to lurk around their house. For weeks, the kids had been complaining about a clown statue in their room, but their parents only brushed it off as nightmares.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Okay, I have one, and I have a few, but I'm going to share one that's a little bit different than some of the things that I've been seeing on this trend so far. And in order to tell you about that, I have to tell you about this. Since I was in my early teens to my mid-20s, I've been having this reoccurring dream, and it was always about this house. How you would get to this house was you would cross this little bridge. It was like with the river underneath it. The house was always embedded into the right side of a hill, and most of the time it was an older white house, but sometimes the house would shift into something more modern. But it didn't matter what iteration of that house you would walk up to, it would always have floor to ceiling bay windows. And when I would go into this house, I would always hang a left through this living room, and the further into the back of the left of the house I would get, the more this house would kind of shift into something else. And the more that it started to shift into something else, like just another house, another like dwelling, like very weird, empty, like 80s plasticky kind of vibes, the more I would feel like I shouldn't be there. And once that feeling was like too strong, I would just walk back up through the regular living room and back up into the foyer. Now in the foyer, there was a staircase that split up at the top, and it wasn't like a grand staircase. It was just straight up narrow staircase with a landing, and then once you got to the landing, there were two little steps up that would lead you into 2 bedrooms. I don't have any idea what's in these bedrooms. I never made it up there. Every time I would get to basically where the landing was at, I would be filled with this feeling of dread, and this feeling that I shouldn't be here. This feeling was tangible. It was thick. There was a lot of pressure, like physical pressure on my chest, and once it would bubble up, usually a voice would be like, go, get out of here. And I would boot it down the stairs every single time. Back down the stairs, we're done. Something in my head said, don't look back. But every single time I would run down the stairs, I could feel something big and thick and like hot following me down the stairs. And I never turned around to see what it was. I was far too scared to do that. And usually by the time I would get to the bottom of the stairs, my body would wake me up because I'd be so freaked out. Trigger warning for this next little section. If you don't like gore, move a little bit ahead because it's a very quick piece. But one time I went up the set of stairs in my dream, and I didn't notice it on the way up, but there was just this woman's head at the landing, like just on the landing, like neck up. And I'm like, oh my God, that's somebody's head. And the person was still alive, which was the weirdest like thing to me. It was just this woman. She had like regular curly brown hair, nothing like out of the ordinary, except that she was missing her whole entire body. But she saw me see her, and when she saw me see her, the look on my face must have been the funniest thing she'd ever seen, because she just started shriek laughing at me. Like my shock, my fear was like a joyful thing to her, and that dream had me like thinking about it for weeks. And I just was like, I have to tell somebody about it at this point. I don't know what to do. So like I'm having these dreams all the time. So my mom and I are driving home one day from our campsite, and I decided to tell her what I just described. And I could see her kind of start to white knuckle the steering wheel, and I could see her breathing start to change. And eventually she was like, that's enough. That is enough. Like she wouldn't look at me. A, she was like driving, but B, I don't think she was freaked out enough. She didn't want to look at me. And I was like, what? Like, I'm just sharing my dream. She's like, that's enough. Like, I don't care. I'm freaked out right now. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she goes, I've had that same dream about that same house since I was 15 years old. She goes, I've never seen the woman you've described, but going into the left side of the house and it being a whole other house, going up the stairs, all this stuff, the bay windows, all of it, I have dreamt about this house since I was 16 years old. The fact that you had to cross a river to get to it, I've dreamt this all. And she and I just kind of like sat there in silence. Like, it's still like a very like, wow, a very jarring like thing to think about, but we didn't know what to do. So, that I had to tell you this. My mom purchased a bungalow, her first time buying a home. She bought it off of a coworker whose parents had passed. From my understanding, one had passed in hospital and one had passed in a long-term care facility. And so when we moved in, like, we were unhappy because we were a little bit further from our friends, but my mom loves this house. She still lives there. Some things to know is that the back of the house, there are 2 bedrooms that face out there. My mom's and my brother's, and my mom has these 2 giant windows. They're about 8-9 feet off the ground. Like, I'm 5'5", and I have to like reach up to get to the bottom of the windowsill. And the other thing you need to know is that there's a room that joins all of the bedrooms together. It's this tiny little like foyer area, but to the back of the house is my brother's room, then my mom's room, then the bathroom, and then my room, and then this little linen closet was like to the left of my room. And one night I'm having a dream, and it's pretty like normal in comparison to like the reoccurring dreams. So not really thinking, can't really remember much about what was happening, but it swirled and shifted into me still being in a dream, but being in the room that I was physically sleeping in at the time, like my bedroom. And I remember waking up in my dream to the room that I was in being pitch black, but the hallway, like that foyer, the connecting room, the light was on to that. So in my dream, I was like, oh, let me go turn that off and I'll go back to bed. When I get into that connecting room, something inside my head goes, open the linen closet. And I do, no hesitation. I open it up. And standing in this linen closet that is too small for a person to physically be in is this woman. And she is wearing this like beige jacket, and I remember her lapels being like so big, it was like trench coat style, that like light khaki beige that a trench coat is. And she is soaking wet, and she's got shaggy hair that's to her like chin / like just top of her shoulders. And she sees me see her, just like that lady at the top of the stairs. And when she sees me see her, she looks at me like this, and then she goes, and I scared myself awake with that. Like, that was enough. And it was very disorienting to wake up in a room that you just like seconds ago in your dream had physically left. Like, it was so weird. But I got up, left the room, and as I'm leaving the room, my mom is leaving her bedroom, and she's like, what are you doing up? It's like 2, 3 in the morning. And I'm like, I just had a really bad dream. She goes, me too. And I was like, did the dog sleep with you tonight? And she goes, no, was she not with you? We had this little Jack Russell Shih Tzu mix named Annie, and she would always sleep in somebody's bed. She had free reign to go around the house. She can go up and down our basement stairs. She usually goes down to the basement, or did go down to the basement to do things she's not supposed to do. But no problem getting up and down the stairs. Now, my mom and I are like, where is she then? So we go and try and find her. She's not in the living room. So we go to the kitchen, and the kitchen, at the back of it, there's a set of stairs that lead down to our basement, and we can hear growling when we get to the kitchen. And we're like, what the hell? Like, we have, again, this yappy little Shih Tzu Jack Russell mix. It's more of that like beep, 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 like that kind of a dog than, well, she was loud, but, and a barker, but she was not a growler. So to hear her have this guttural growl at the base of the stairs was crazy. She was at the bottom of the stairs. All of the lights in the basement were on, and they were not on when both of us went to bed. There's nobody else in the house. And the dog would not come up the stairs. We could not get her to come up, and she was just stuck growling. And it took us probably about 5 minutes to get her up there. My mom and I are freaked at this point, and I tell her what and who I dreamt about, and she goes, again, shut up, stop, like, please stop, I can't, like, and I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, that same woman, I could see her from her chest up, walked the entirety of my windows in the back room. The windows that I told you, if I wanted to reach from the ground, I had to, like, there was physically no way anybody could be walking across at that height unless they were 11 feet tall. Like, there's no way. And I described what she looked like, and I just watched my mom's face go like pale. She goes, she was wearing the fucking jacket. She was wearing that jacket for me too. That's exactly what she looked like. We had the same dream at the same time about the same person and woke up from that dream at the same time because we saw this person in places that they physically could not fit into in the real world. I have no explanation for it. My mom and I talk about it all the time, and we can still not figure out what went down for this, to all of these puzzle pieces to like come together like this.
What the fuck was that? Bro,
What's going on around you?
I don't know. I'm frozen. I am frozen.
Did the window
Sean.
break?
I'm pretty sure this is going to be the last home healthcare video that I'll be making. I have to double check my book, but around that time I was always writing things down whenever they happen, but I'll have to double check and let you know. So let's get into it. So around this time I was packing a bag about, 3 days, sometimes even 2 weeks, and I'll be going to these clients' houses. I was working for this home healthcare company. And so I packed the bag for the 24th, 25th, and 26th of December, and I was at this woman's house. Now I had already been to her house months before, I had been there consistently for months and nothing ever happened in her house. So here we are. This is a small house. We're up in the living room and we're dancing. She likes to dance. And so we're up there dancing, having a ball. And I noticed a lot of new decoration. I'm like, oh, you've been decorating? She's like, yeah, the other girl, whenever she's on shift, she helps me decorate. I'm like, cool. The doorbell rings. I go to the doorbell. I go to the door. I open the door and it was my coworker, the woman that she was just talking about. And she brought this chair. And I'm like, you brought a chair? She was like, yeah, it's adding to our decoration. This is something that we like doing together. I'm like, okay, cool. That was sweet. So she brings the chair in. When she brought the chair in, she set it all the way at the end of the hall. And it had this painting that was over it. So I'm like, okay, that's sweet. So we continue our stuff. The lady leaves. We continue dancing. And then the woman wants to get in bed. So I put her in bed. Fast forward to after I put her in bed, I put the motion sensors down just in case she gets up. So the motion sensors started going crazy. And I looked at the camera and she's laying in bed. She's knocked out. So finally I stand up, and when I stand up to go check and peek my head around the corner, there's this dark figure sitting in the chair that my coworker had just brought into the house. Can't make out if it's a man or a woman just yet, but it was a very dark figure, and I heard stomping, but it didn't sound like feet. And then I look over and it has like this cane in its hand, just stomping it on the ground, on the floor. So finally I get up, I run over to my duffel bag, and I get my Bible out, and I get to praying. And it's just sitting there looking at me like, and I said, so you just not gonna go? Like, you just not gonna leave? So then once I started to get aggravated and I started to really be really forceful with the words from the Bible, that's when it stood up and it walked into the bathroom, and then it walked back out. But when it walked back out the bathroom, it did this high jump in the air. Like, okay, what was that about? After it did that little high jump, that weird thing, it disappeared from in front of me. But I heard the motion sensor, so I walked over to the camera. And when I walked up to the camera, I see his face, yes, it was a he, in the camera, and he's pointing at my client. So, of course, I'm aggravated. I go back there and I flick the lights on. I didn't care if she was asleep. I was just worried because I know you ain't here for her. Not right now. Not right now. So then fast forward, I played it off to the woman like, oh, do you have to use the bathroom? I'm so sorry that I flicked the light on like that. And so she's like, oh, no, I'm okay. So she lays back down. Once I go back out to the living room, I get to praying. I get to drawing crosses over all the doors, over all the windows. But next thing you know, I feel something walk behind me. And when I felt it, I turned around and he's right here in my face, like right here in my face. I almost dropped to the floor, y'all, but I couldn't do it because then he'd be thinking that he had one up on me. So that entire night, he would just randomly pop up in my face. He would randomly pop up on the sofa, or he would be sitting in that chair that my coworker brought. Now, this is the scariest part. The scariest part is the fact that right after he left up out of my client's room, I could hear her gasping for air like she needed me. And so I ran in there and I sat her up on the edge of the bed and I'm like, "Are you okay?" And she said that she said, "I'm not ready to go yet. I'm not ready to go." Now, all this time, she's never talked like this. And so I'm just like, you ain't got to go yet if you don't want to. I think what made me more nervous about it is the fact that it was a dark figure that came to collect her. At that point, I was just like, do you want to pray with me? We had never prayed together before, but in that moment, she wanted to pray. So we prayed, right? So fast forward to while we're praying, he just sat down. Like, I wait. So I think that scared me too, because what has this woman done in her life that is so terrible to have a dark figure come to collect her and take her somewhere, and not even a prayer can stop it, can stop her from going with him. Now, here's the even scarier part. I got a feeling to look outside. So I went ahead and I looked out the window. And when I looked out the window, there were two other dark figures standing on the sidewalk. That scared the crap out of me, because I know y'all better just be here for her. So I hear knocking on the door. Of course, I'm not answering it because I just looked out the window. I saw y'all out there. I'm not opening the door. And so the woman, she starts getting hysterical and she is like really going crazy. I'd never seen her like this before. And so do y'all know, like, probably not even 24 hours after I left, that woman passed away. She passed away. And in my head, I felt so bad. But in my head, I was thinking like, oh my God, this family gonna think I'm the Grim Reaper.
This next story is from one of my listeners, and she sent me this story, and honestly, when she told it me, I actually had real shivers. It really made me feel really creeped out. And it's again another one that's based around a basement. So let's get started with Lucy's story. I've changed her name because she didn't want to be named. So Lucy said that she grew up in a typical farmhouse cottage in UK. She actually didn't live there, it was her auntie's house, but she grew up there and she spent the majority of her time there. Her cousin, who was a similar age to her, loved her going around there. They spent so much time together. But one afternoon they were playing and her cousin said to her, should we do hide and seek? And this was something that they did on a regular basis. And she said, you can picture this cottage. It had a beautiful garden and they had acres of land that surrounded like woodland area where they would play. But this time it was the winter and they had to do hide and seek in the house. This house also had a basement, and the basement, she said, was used basically just for storage. So they had like a pantry down there, and at the end of the basement there was another little door which was, she said, always locked. She never went in it. The handle was all rusted, so they never even tried to open it. They were only kids anyway, so she said they would just hide down there. There was like big boxes down there, stuff like that, and they would just hide behind them. But she said she never ever felt creeped out by the basement. In fact, if anything, she didn't feel anything in the property at all. Anyway, so they were doing hide and seek, and she said her cousin went to hide. So Lucy said she went down to the basement. She was obviously seeking to find her cousin. So she went down to the basement, and she said as she was looking down there and she was calling for her cousin's name, she heard laughing, like little kids giggling. So she assumed that it was her cousin. So she said that she could hear this laughing coming from the end of the basement where the door is at the end, the locked door that you can't get to. So she went down to the end door and put her ear to it to have a listen. For a second she said she couldn't hear anything, but then she heard the giggling again, assuming it was her cousin. I found you, she said, come out. She tried to open the door. The door was locked. She heard the giggling again. I found you, she said, you can come out now. Lucy tried to open the door, but again it was locked. She couldn't open it. How did you get in there? Said Lucy. No response. I found you and I'm going back upstairs now, so I'm going to do the hiding and you're going to have to come and find me. Lucy said she proceeded to go back up the stairs and then she heard a voice directly behind her. She spun around, but there was nothing there. She said it sounded more like a little girl whispering. But she said that she couldn't really make out what this whispering was, but she said she definitely heard it. And she just assumed that it was her cousin messing around. So now feeling a little bit freaked out, she said, I'm going back upstairs now. So she went back upstairs to the living room, which was apparently directly off the basement steps. And as she walked up the steps and back up into the living room, there was her cousin sat on the sofa. There was my cousin sat on the sofa looking at me as if I was mad. How did you get up here? I said to her. I've been up here all the time, she said. I was looking for you and I couldn't find you, so I sat here waiting for you. I actually could not believe it, and my heart literally leapt out of my mouth when I thought, well then who was that downstairs? I sat on the sofa next to my cousin and I told her what I'd heard. Oh, that's fine, she said. You've just met Martha. My skin crawled. What do you mean? Who is Martha? She lives in the cupboard downstairs, said my cousin. She comes out from time to time and we play occasionally. Are you kidding me? I said. She's fine. She doesn't hurt you. From that day on, I actually believed in ghosts, because I had definitely heard giggling and laughing behind that door, and somebody had whispered in my ear as I'd walked up those steps. So whoever this ghost was, I have no idea, but she was apparently called Martha and she used to live in the house. How creepy is that?
One of my followers named Emily just told me about her Hatman encounter, and guys, I'm actually afraid to go to sleep tonight. Before I begin, if you have a horror story you want me to read, go ahead and follow my Instagram that's linked in my bio and DM me your story. So Emily lives in Orlando, and this is the story she told me. Exactly how it happened the day she got sick after a rainy day at Disney. Emily told me she remembers every small detail, and she swears on everything that she will never forget the feeling of being watched, and she will never forget what came back for her at 3:43 a.m. She told me she came home soaked from the rain at Disney and was exhausted and achy, and by morning the fever hit. Her parents kept her home and she was dizzy, coughing, nose running, stomach like a knot. She told me her mom fussed over her, gave her medicine, and wrapped a damp towel around her forehead. Emily told me mid-afternoon when the fever spiked and things just felt so bad, her mom gave her Benadryl to help her sleep and to fight off the illness. Emily told me she laid back on her bed with her phone scrolling through TikToks until her eyes felt heavy. She set her phone down and watched the ceiling. The sun was low and the whole room had that warm golden hush to it. She told me the TV downstairs echoed. For a second, Emily told me everything seemed normal until she heard a creak. It was soft, a low scrape from the closet at the end of her room. She told me she only half lifted her head at first, sleepy and foggy from the medicine. In the corner of the closet door, Emily told me she saw a shadow move. She blinked and saw the outline of something slim sliding the closet door open just enough to peer out. She said it was a skinny dark shape, too thin to be human, and it was too still to be someone simply playing a trick on her. Emily said she felt her muscles lock and she called for her mom. Not a shout, just a small, helpless voice. Seconds later, the bedroom door eased open and her mom peeked through. She told her mom, and with a half smile, she walked over to the closet and told her it's nothing as she opened the door and showed her inside the closet. Her mom said it was just her imagination, and Emily ended up started laughing a little bit. She was embarrassed, but she didn't believe it then when her mom said it was just her imagination. And she most definitely didn't when the night came. Later that night, after more medicine and a long nap, she woke up at night with that hollow, sick feeling still there. She told me she checked the clock, 3:43 a.m. She told me she remembers the numbers the same way some people remember their license plate. It was carved into her mind like this number was significant. She told me the moon shined into her room so she could see a little bit of her surroundings. Everything in the room was silent until she started to hear the creak again. This time, it wasn't a faint sound at the edge of her room. It was closer. This time, the sound was nowhere near her closet. Emily told me that she was so weak from the medication that lifting her head felt like a bag of rocks. She told me she squinted in the dark and the shape of the figure was revealed. Standing now at the end of her bed was the figure from the closet, taller than any man, impossibly thin, and was completely dark. She told me that she could see that it was wearing a hat. It was an old-fashioned top hat, tall and proud. She said there was no face in the shadow, no eyes, no mouth. It was like a dark void was where the face should be. Emily told me she then felt something change in the room. Like the air had weight to it. Her pillow felt suddenly cold and she could feel pressure on her chest. She said it felt like something was being pressed at her ribcage that made her breath shallow. The Hat Man didn't speak and it didn't need to. Emily said it then tilted its head as if it was listening to a sound only it could hear. She then told me it began to move, but it didn't walk like a person. She said each small step it took was a small vibration through the mattress. Each time it moved closer, she could feel a pulse running through her legs up to her teeth. Emily told me she tried to scream, but she was just too weak. The strong medicine of the Benadryl muffled her sound. She then told me she remembers the moment she saw the Hat Man raise its hand. Long, almost twig-like fingers, joints that seemed too many for any human hand. She said it was reaching, like it was measuring how far away she was, like it was deciding whether to take her. Emily told me before the fingers could touch her, the door burst open. Her mom walked in not knowing what just happened and only walked in the room to check on how Emily was doing. When her mom flipped the light on, Emily told me the Hat Man completely disappeared. The shadow that was once there disappeared. Where did it go? How did it just simply disappear like that? Is it back in the shadows? Is it waiting for her to turn off the light again? Emily had all of these questions running through her mind. Emily said she began to cry and her mom sat down on the bed confused, wondering what just happened. She told me she told her mom everything. The closet, the leaning figure, the top hat, the hands. Her mom stayed and slept in her room that night. Emily told me her mom didn't say she believed it out loud, but she didn't leave either. Emily told me after that night she never saw the Hat Man again. Not in her closet, not in her room, not in any reflection. But the memory of the Hat Man did not fade. Emily remembers everything, and there's one thing at the end of her story that was quite weird, but she still wanted me to share with you guys. She told me and admitted that out of curiosity, she would like to see the Hat Man again, but when she is healthy. Not because she wants to be afraid, but because she wants to know. What does this figure look like up close when she's not in bed, nearly dying from her fever? Even though the thought of that is crazy, Emily told me that all she knows is this. 3:43 a.m. is a time that she will never not see without shivering. And if you ever find yourself in a warm, sleepy room and you hear the door slightly creak open from your closet, Emily told me to tell you, do not stay to look. And don't let the Hat Man have a chance to decide what will happen next.
This is the scary story about Halloween night. There were two friends named Jake and Tyler. It was Halloween night and they couldn't wait to get free candy. When the moon came out, they grabbed their bags and began going from door to door. After going to a couple of houses, they went to this one with no decorations. They then knocked on the door and a man answered. The man then said, "Here, I have some gummy eyeballs for you guys. Please take some," with a creepy smile on his face. Jake and Tyler took a gummy eyeball and ate it. But they weren't gummy eyeballs. They were real human eyes. The man had a whole bowl filled with them. They then ran away and called the police. When the police arrived at the man's house, they got the scare of their life. In the man's basement was a dozen young boys' corpses in costumes, and they all had their eyes taken out.
Can we show them the older homestead?
Yeah, let's go.
As you know? No, it's not. No, it's not. Was that you?
Yeah, that's on either side.
They went to both.
Yeah.
So this is incredibly random. It literally just happened. I'm, as we speak, waiting in line to go pick up my child. I'm freaking out, and I'm kind of scared to tell my husband about this because I already know how he feels. Me and my husband are completely different people, for starters. He does not... Oh, wow, yes. See, very random. So my husband and I are complete opposites. He does not like anything spooky or scary, anything ghost-like. He will avoid it at all costs, and he doesn't want to acknowledge it. Whereas me, I am a weirdo who loves all of that stuff, and I find it fascinating. So, just for starters, to kind of put all of this together in the story. My husband is a paramedic, and he is around death a lot, and he had been seeing an older male figure for the past couple of weeks. And recently we had moved So he was like, oh, well, maybe I'm like seeing someone that passed away or something like that. And I agreed. I was like, yeah, that could be true. Come to find out, today, the mail lady comes by, and I hadn't yet introduced myself to her, so I go up to her, and I show her my daughter. We were outside playing chalk, and she's like, so were you guys, like, family of the man and woman who lived here prior, or you just bought the house? And I was like, yes, we bought the house. Why do you ask? And she's like, oh, well, I didn't see the wife move, so, because I had been on vacation, so I was kind of wondering, like, what was going on with that. But I did know that her husband had recently passed, so maybe she just didn't want to live in the house after that. I was like, oh, he passed away? And she was like, yeah, he had been sick for a long time. Actually, before I had gone on vacation, he wasn't able to go outside because he couldn't walk anymore, so he had to stay inside, and he was bedbound. I was like, oh, that's so sad and unfortunate. I didn't know anything about that. And she was like, yeah, and I'm pretty sure he died in the house, so I wouldn't blame her for not wanting to stay here. He died where? No one told us this also before we had moved into the house. I don't know if they're supposed to legally tell you, but we did not know about that. So that's for one. And for two, I think it's too coincidental that my husband started seeing this older male figure, and then the male person is telling me this out of the blue.
I don't know if this is considered paranormal, but I had a weird dream when I was dog sitting at my father's house. I got tired and I fell asleep in his room in the basement. In the dream, a random magician approached me and said, "Want to see a magic trick?" Before I said anything back, I woke up to all of the lights in the house flickering. The adrenaline rush I had was crazy. I used to hear footsteps when I was home alone and something scratching the walls. I was in bed and I was falling asleep. I felt like someone was touching my hair in my head, but when I looked, it was just a shadow. So one night I was sleeping in my bed, and then I saw my dad come into my room. I didn't want to get in trouble, so I pretended to be asleep. But then I heard the door close. I looked at my door, and I saw my dad crawling on my floor like a demon. And I screamed so loud, I went to turn on the light, and my mom came in and asked what happened. He said he was just looking for an earring for his ear, because he lost it. The scary part is, why would my dad even be looking for an earring in my room? I didn't even have my ears pierced yet. When he was walking out of my room with my mom, I swear he looked back and smiled really wide, and his eyes started glowing. The next day, he passed away from a heart attack. One day it was already dark and I was home alone, so I was in my room. And I started hearing things, but I thought that I was just hallucinating, so I ignored it. But then I heard footsteps, like a man's loud footsteps. I thought I was just overthinking and I ignored it. But then I heard someone walking in front of my room and the chairs moving. I thought my parents came, so I called them on the phone and they said that they would come later. And at this point I was so scared I immediately locked the door. And after some time I came out of my room and the chairs were somewhere else, but no one was there. Me and my man were on FaceTime and I could hear a noise coming from his bathroom. An electric toothbrush was stood up on top of the bathroom cupboard and was vibrating but not falling over. It was not on a stand. We got off the call and he sent me a video of him turning it off. Then I call him again and as soon as he goes into his room, it starts to go off again. So he turns it off on call with me, places it back and stands at the bathroom door. At this point, he's really creeped out and I say, "Toothbrush, go bzz," and his face turns pale. He flips the camera and shows me the toothbrush. It's going off again. He turns it off once more and gets into bed, and then it never happened again. I also always predict things, or when I speak about something, it happens. No one ever believes us because of how often it happens, and he's convinced I'm a witch.
Let's talk about another haunted doll. If you're new here, hi. I usually talk about some pretty scary stuff, and recently I was sitting down with one of my friends, and she told me legitimately the most terrifying ghost story I've ever heard about a haunted doll. So let's get into it. So here's the context of how the doll got to her and her family. Essentially, her neighbor was moving away and was like, "Hey, I can't take this doll with me. Can you guys keep her for me?" I don't know why this neighbor would give them the doll. I don't know. And unfortunately, this doll wasn't like a Raggedy Ann doll. This was a large porcelain vintage doll. So my friend and her family agreed to keep the doll for their neighbor. And my friend specifically says that when they started having the doll in their home, there was just like some weird energy going on around the doll. And they specifically started to notice, and this gives me chills, that the doll's fingers started falling off. Like porcelain fingers would go missing. And they had no idea where the fingers were going. They were never able to find them. And just as a reminder, this wasn't a tiny porcelain doll where like the fingers could go missing if you like bumped it wrong. This was a pretty big porcelain doll from my understanding. Eventually it got to the point, I don't know how long into them having the doll where they decided to get rid of it, but it was essentially, this doll's really weird and it freaks us out and there's something wrong with it. So I'm pretty sure they donated it. So if you needed a sign to not buy things from thrift stores, especially porcelain dolls, that was it. But it gets worse. So my friend was doing her laundry, and the way that their house is set up, the washer and dryer are in the basement where the doll used to be. She's just doing her thing when out of the corner of her eye, she sees this little thing run. And it was wearing the same color dress that the porcelain doll had, and it was about the same size as the porcelain doll. And my friend said after that experience, she refused to do anything in the basement or do her laundry in the basement for a long time. And that she still hates going down there. And I don't know what it is about seeing things out of the corner of your eye. Way scarier than I think seeing something at face value. But anyways, that's gonna do it for me. Stay tuned for more ghost stories.
I don't care if it's still August, school is officially over, therefore it is spooky season, so I'm gonna tell you a spooky story. This is true and this happened to me. So you're gonna need a little bit of context before I jump right into the story. My grandparents on my mother's side live out in the country in Oklahoma. When I was younger, we would go out there and visit them frequently, at least once a year. This particular time, we're going to visit them. I can't remember exactly how old I was. I want to say I was like 10. Somewhere between the ages of like 8 and 11. So we go up there for a small family, like close family reunion type of thing. I should also mention that this house is old. If that wasn't already obvious, this house is old. It's old as my grandparents. It's older than them. So at this reunion, everyone's outside. They're grilling, barbecuing, sitting, chit-chatting, talking, whatever. It was starting to get a little bit chilly, so I was like, I'm gonna go inside and get a jacket and I'll be right back. So I run inside. Mind you, nobody else is inside the house. Everybody's outside getting their barbecue on, okay? I run inside, up the stairs to my room to grab a jacket. In this room, there's the closet, and then next to the closet right here is a little door for a crawl space. I grab my jacket, I turn around. The crawl space is open. The door is cracked open. I'm like, oh, okay, let me just go and close that really quick. I go over, I open it a little bit because I'm like, what's in there? Not expecting there to be anything in there. I open it, and there's a staircase. A long staircase going up. So what does 10-year-old me do? I go up the staircase. Something was just speaking to me, telling me that this door was open for a reason and that I'm supposed to go up in here. So I get to the top, there's another door. I open the door into this grand hallway. It's like white and gold marble columns, but it's a long hallway. And there's a bunch of doors going down, and then another door at the very end. Immediately, I'm like, what is this? Where am I? And a little freaked out, obviously. Something was calling me to go to the door at the very end of the hallway. Forget all the other doors, go to the one at the end of the hallway. So I start walking down this very long hallway. And all of these doors are shut, right? And then I feel like something's watching me. I look and I see further down the hallway, one of these doors on the left side, an old woman, a very creepy old woman, is peeking her head out of the door and watching me. And then I would see her pop out of a different door and be looking at me, and then a different door and then be looking at me as I kept progressing down the hallway. Finally, I reached the end of the hallway to the door at the end, and I was so compelled to open it. So I opened it, and I left the door open. When I entered the room, I left the door open, okay? And it's a complete change of environment. The hallway was white and gold marble columns, like very clean, very, I don't know, elegant. Walk into this room, it's like your basic
old dusty attic. Boxes, spider webs, it's dark, creaky wood, and there's a circular window across from me at the other end of the room. The same exact circular window that you can see from the front yard where everyone is outside. So I walk over, I look out the window, and I can see everybody down there, but it's like there's a weird filter over it, where it's in like black and white, and they're all skeletons. Everyone's there, moving around like normal, grilling, laughing, playing, but they're skeletons. And as I'm registering this, processing it, the door behind me slams shut, and I turn around, and the creepy old lady is standing behind one of those piles of boxes, looking at me with the most sinister, it was the most evil I've felt in my life. I ran faster than I've ever ran in my entire life. Out of that room, back down the hall. I did not look back a single time. Back out the original door, back down the staircase, and I shut the crawl space door behind me. I grabbed my jacket off of the bed where I had set it before I went up there, and I put it on, walked downstairs and back outside like nothing happened. The next time that I come over to visit my grandparents, about a year later, I have not told my grandma this story. I've not told her anything. I come over, I go to sleep in this room. I'm already a little bit apprehensive about it because of the previous events. I step into the room, and I see that the crawl space is now boarded and nailed shut with blankets over it as well. They boarded that up. And then just recently, a couple years ago, I actually told my grandma about this, and all she does is go, yeah. Goodbye.
A horrifying and true Halloween story. It was Halloween night in 1974. Ronald Clark O'Brien, his wife, and their 2 kids enjoyed a dinner with their friends, the Bates family. The kids rushed through dinner, got changed, and were ready for a night of trick-or-treating. Mr. O'Brien and his friend Mr. Bates took the kids out. After about an hour, with no luck on getting any good candy, Mr. O'Brien called the kids over to the sidewalk. He had giant pixie sticks for the kids, and they were very excited. Well, later that night, Mr. O'Brien's son started having stomach pains, and by morning he had passed away. Mr. O'Brien pretended to be sad, pretended to be distraught over the death of his son. Well, the detectives found the pixie sticks, and they did a test, and found incredible amounts of cyanide, enough to kill 3 adults, and they found O'Brien guilty. He was sentenced to death, and on the day it was supposed to happen, as he was leaving his cell, the cellmates all around him yelled one thing. They yelled, "Trick or treat."
Halloween is the #1 time of year that has the most satanic sacrifices.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Apparently, I heard in New York, the week leading up to Halloween, that is the #1 time where most homeless go missing as well. So basically, bruh, a lot of these people will go over there who are these like Satanists. They'll go to certain areas where they'll see homeless people. They'll bring like this unmarked vehicle, and they'll tell these homeless people like, we got food and we can take you to a shelter and things like that. And apparently they will take these people to a random location, and they will sacrifice them to the devil on Halloween.
Really?
Yes. Even this dude that was in New York, he was like some type of big banker. He doesn't even know what he's getting into. He ends up being invited to one of these satanic sacrifices.
Oh, damn.
So he's like, bro, I need to do something about this. So he ends up contacting a journalist. He ends up going back. He records the whole thing, and there's like full audio. And he even says, when I do this, I'm more than likely gonna end up dead. Literally 3 days later, police end up finding this guy face down, dead inside of a creek.
No way.
Yeah, so they were like, bro, they got him.
And
I'm not even gonna lie, this actually just happened in New York. I think like a couple days ago, matter of fact. There was a box on the sidewalk and it had somebody's head in it.
Really?
In New York recently, bro. Yeah, and notice, bro, it's a couple weeks before Halloween.
Halloween, October the 31st, is actually the only day in the year where the underworld has access to the overworld.
Oh yeah, I think I heard that
Okay?
before too.
So what happens is like all the dead are able to come to the surface, come to our world, and try to steal a soul from the living.
What?
So take this in, right? So the reason everybody dresses up is because the dead come and look for souls from the living.
And we camouflage?
So we camouflage and pretend we're dead. So we dress up as people from the underworld so that the dead won't take our souls. Now listen, right?
Why?
Now, the reason we give candy out to everybody is because supposedly the only way to keep your soul is to give to the peasants. Like back in the day, they would give to the peasants. They would give food to the peasants because it's like cleaning your soul. It's like giving charity, right?
Oh, okay.
So that was a way to stop the dead from coming to you and stealing your soul.
Oh,
so that's why we give candy out. And then it's evolved over years. That's why we give candy out to the kids on Halloween with trick-or-treating and shit. And that's why everybody dresses up as like ghouls, monsters, and all that.
Why?